Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Cam, and welcome back to the 2000 Project. We only have one movie we're covering this week, but man, it's certainly a big one. Well, big for myself, Russell, and our guest. But Russell, how are you?
Good, man. It is a slobber knocker, to quote one Jim Ross. Yeah, looking forward to talking about this one. I actually got a late start with this film. I did not see it when it came out in 2000, which is crazy because I was like deep in the wrestling in 2000, which is completely crazy. But I was WWF, WWE, so like I could see where I didn't watch it. But I only like watched this movie for the first time maybe a couple of years ago. Completely crazy.
Well, I had to bring on this guy to do this with us because he, like, ever since, like, I've met him, he has always been like, "Can we review Ready to Rumble? Can we review Ready to Rumble?" I'm like, we can now finally finish the story. It is Phil from Phil Talk Sports. Phil, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. Yeah, I have it in my contract. Any wrestling related movie at all, Jake has to bring me on for. So it's good to be here.
Also Pokemon, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to Pokemon 2. But thank you so much, Phil. It's great to have you back on. You were back on last time to cover another movie by this director, Varsity Blues, because he directed this and Ready to Rumble. I did not know this until today.
Yeah, that's news to me.
Well,
And it makes sense because Scott Kahn's in it, and so is the dad. The dad of David Arquette is one of the dads in Varsity Blues.
Yeah, he's I think the quarterback, the main quarterback's dad. Now that you say that, that makes sense.
Not Mox. Whatchamacallit, Paul Walker's character. I can't think of his name.
Yeah, but yeah.
Blank. Yeah.
Well, without any further ado, let us get into it. Let's celebrate the 25th anniversary of Ready to Rumble.
Ready to Rumble. Foreign objects!
Ready to Rumble was directed by Brian Robbins. Like I mentioned, he directed Varsity Blues along with Good Burger and Norbit. This man had a career. I'll just leave it at that. And it starred David Arquette, Scott Kahn, like Russell mentioned, Oliver Platt, Rose McGowan, and a lot of wrestlers from WCW. We'll get into that in a minute. And it tells the story of two guys named Gordy and Sean, played by David Arquette and Scott Kahn. They're huge into wrestling, specifically WCW. And when the world champion, Jimmy King, gets screwed over, it's up to Gordy and Sean to gas him back up to have him face the nefarious Diamond Dallas Page. But we'll get into that and why that's weird in just a second. But Phil, we were talking off air about how like you have such a relationship with this movie, and Russell said you just watched it a couple of years ago. Did you see this in theaters? Did you grow up watching this?
You know, I don't remember the first time seeing this. It was probably a Blockbuster rental or a Tropical Video rental that was the mom and pop place near me. Because it would have came out, I would have been 8 years old. I wouldn't have really had control over the movies we went to the theater to see at that point. But it was definitely the VHS copy got worn out because me and my buddy Josh Rossi from childhood would watch it probably every weekend, even if it was just in the background. So I don't remember the first time, but it is very much embedded in my childhood.
But this movie came out at a very interesting time, like not just in the year 2000, but it also, like, in the world of wrestling, it was like a real hotbed. Like WWF was doing it was like not at their peak, but just coming off of their peak, like late 99, early 2000. That was like their peak right there. However, WCW was not doing great. And Phil and I could go into the deep minutia of that, but we don't have time for that. We'd be here all day. Point is, Ready to Rumble was kind of seen as like maybe this will generate some interest again. It did not. But 25 years later, it has survived as kind of a weird oddity of this time period. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say this is like an all-timer, like great movie, but I've always considered it a guilty pleasure. It's dumb, but it's like an endearing kind of dumb. And for wrestling fans like Phil and myself, like seeing all the cameos just make us both be like, oh yeah, we know him. We definitely know him. Like not just like the bigger ones like DDP and Sting is also in here, but also not the musician, but the wrestler Sting. I need to make that. I need to
Thanks
make
for
that
clarifying.
clear. But there's
I'm
also
glad you did.
there's also John Cena in this movie who's working out. Like he's uncredited, but you can see him in a couple of shots. Goldberg is in this movie as well. Bam Bam Bigelow's in this movie. Randy Savage is in this movie as well. So there was a lot of guys here, and so it's like it's a weird little slice of like what all was like who all was in the company at the time, and it's a weird little time capsule that I just love watching.
Yeah, no, it's cool to even see like Perry Saturn, Psycho Sid, Sid Vicious, obviously WWF 2 of WWF fame as well. Billy Kidman, even the referee with the perfect blonde hair that is in WWE was a SmackDown staple for referee.
Yeah. Charles Robinson.
Yeah, I mean it's just like you can pretty much throw out tons of cameos, and then it's crazy to think how many are not with us anymore. Obviously, you have Savage, you have Sid Vicious, Psycho Sid. Bam Bam Bigelow, I think he passed away. I'm pretty sure he passed away too, right? Yeah, and it's just crazy to see, our childhood, like especially with wrestling. You see all these, the wrestlers, obviously just losing Hogan last month, but it's just crazy to see kind of like what, you pointed to out earlier. It's a fun time capsule, I guess. And it was one of those movies that it was crazy. The movie budgeted $24 million. I saw from IMDb, and I think it only made half of that back, which is completely crazy. But yeah. It's still fun though. It's a fun stupid. I enjoy it.
Yeah, one other, it's a blink and you'll miss it cameo, but we actually have an unmasked Rey Mysterio. He's in the match when they first get to, he does the Hurricane Rana off the top rope. As they're getting to the Nitro taping and that match is going on, he's in the cameo overalls, but that's a blink and you'll miss it one.
Yeah.
It's a very long story, Russell, but all you need to know is that for like the last couple of years of WCW's existence, Rey Mysterio wrestled without a mask. And for a period of time, there was a rumor that he was dating Jennifer Aniston, who was in the midst of her run on Friends. It was a rumor. It didn't go anywhere. But
what a rock star, right?
Yeah.
What a good rumor. It's probably the best rumor he's probably ever heard. Oh, and don't forget the Nitro Girls, too.
Yes, definitely.
That's true, yeah. Unmasked Rey Mysterio is kind of underrated. Like if you really like look at it, he was still springy. He was still like doing his thing. I don't think that gets nearly the love that I think it deserves. But again, I'm sidetracking myself.
Yeah,
way hard.
He's like 22 at that point, and that would have killed a lot of other guys' careers. Like when Psychosis gets unmasked, kind of stalled. He didn't like disappear off the face of the earth, but like never really went any farther. Ray randomly got like more over without his mask, and then when he re-debuted in WWE with the mask, it was like off to the races. So
yeah, he was more popular. I think his popularity, surged at WWF. I feel like it kind of almost. I feel like it peaked for sure with the 619 and all that stuff.
Yeah,
maybe Master P is more of a genius than we let on. But the main crux of the movie, though, is it's basically these two super fans finding like the guy that just got ousted and being like, you're the guy, you're our hero when we need to lift you up. And Jimmy the King is played, or Jimmy the King, it's Jimmy King. It's played by Oliver Platt. And it's interesting that they went this route with like getting an actor to be the champion. I'm surprised they didn't do it with a wrestler, with like one of the active wrestlers. Maybe that was a creative decision. I don't know. But I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but it was always a weird choice.
No, I agree. 100%. You could have gotten somebody else. I feel like I just don't know who. And it was yeah. I don't know who you would have gotten in that though. Yeah, Platt was a weird choice. I feel like
you would need to make either the main character wrestler an actor or the villain a actor to kind of tie it into Hollywood. Because if this is just DDP versus Goldberg, the movie, like not that it did commercially well, but I don't know that even would have had the chance to do commercially well if it's just a wrestling story in movie form. But I'm sure you guys can rattle off, like, Oliver Platt's a pretty accomplished actor. To me, he's forever Jimmy King. Like, I see him in other stuff, and I point it out, and I yell to my wife, "There's Jimmy King," and she has no idea what I'm talking about. But he's forever Jimmy King to me, for sure.
Yeah. I always think of him at Lake Placid. I know it's a random one. He was at Lake Placid. It was just a random, just like one of those random times. And he was also, and I think he was in Michael as well. He was big in the 90s, 2000s. It was, like I said, it's kind of crazy that they went with him, but I still like it. I think it's fun.
He's still acting mostly in TV. I'll just leave it.
He's in The Bear now, which is probably his biggest role right now, the TV show The Bear.
Yeah, I'm behind. I only finished the first season, and I am behind.
Well, also talk about a big year for David Arquette, because Russell, as we covered earlier in the project with Scream 3, he was in that, and then he was also in this. So it was like, I mean, David Arquette is still acting nowadays, which, I mean, God bless him, he's still going strong today. But
he's also wrestling actively for the most part. Yeah,
I was just going to get to that, but back during like the late 90s, early 2000s, that was like peak David Arquette right there.
Oh, yeah. Eight-Legged Freaks. You had him, obviously, the first Scream, second Scream, obviously Scream 3, but Eight-Legged Freaks. I mean, he was everywhere. He was definitely getting a lot of play, especially, acting. And this is obviously right. God, this is right around. Is this right when he was starting with Courtney Cox too?
I mean,
or is it
in Scream 3,
in
Scream 3, she is billed as
Courtney Cox
Arquette. So
so they were married. That. Yeah. So he was like I said, he was huge. I mean, obviously, always synonymous with Dewey, but I think he definitely peaked, obviously at this time for sure. And I also say Eight-Legged Freaks as well, because that was a guilty pleasure. I remember seeing that in the theaters.
Mm-hmm.
I do love him in the Scary Movie series. Like, it's,
oh yeah,
he does a great job, and it really kicks off what is still going. Apparently, they're making another one of those soon. So I think he was one of the 10 poles of why those are so successful.
Yeah.
And then you got might as well bring this up before we forget. This landed David Arquette the World Championship. Basically, again, long story, but to air quotes promote the movie that was already in theaters for a couple of weeks, they ran an angle where he gets into a WCW title match with DDP, and he wins the title. It's as dumb as you think it is. And the good thing that came out of this was that Arquette donated all of the money he made while wrestling for WCW at the time to the families of Owen Hart, who died at Over the Edge 1999, to Darren Drozdov, who got paralyzed in the ring off the powerbomb, and to Bobby Duncan Jr., who passed away, I believe, due to an overdose. I'll correct myself later if I'm wrong on that. So, and then, of course, Arquette would later wrestle in a couple matches, including a death match where he gets hit over the head with a pile of light tubes against Nick Gage.
And nearly dies.
And nearly dies, yes. It's a fascinating thing to watch. Point is, David Arquette, him winning the world title was not great, but what came afterwards, something good came out of it. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the hate, people point to that as the death nail of WCW, and for the most part it was, but I think the hate directed towards him is very misguided. It was not his idea, and if anyone that was a wrestling fan had any clout to be there and put in that position, they're taking that opportunity. Jake, if your channel blows up more than it already has, and you are backstage at a wrestling show, and they're like, hey, do you mind if we put the world title on you for 2 weeks? You're saying yes. So I've never blamed him for that situation.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I can imagine 1990s Attitude Era, they asked me or something like that. You're all over that, man. But to kind of go with the beginning of the film, that screw job, I'm reminiscent of the Montreal screw job between obviously Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. And I think that's kind of where we were getting that storyline, borrowing a storyline, so to speak, from that. I even read that I think Martin Landau's character was supposed to be loosely based, obviously, on Stu Hart as well.
Makes a lot of sense.
But it is kind of funny, yeah.
Thing is, and Phil, you were bringing this up backstage when we were talking about this. DDP is the main villain in this movie, which makes no sense because if you know anything about Dallas Page, you'll know he's pretty much a saint. Like he saved Jake Roberts' life, helped Scott Hall kick his addictions for the most part. Sadly, Scott Hall's no longer with us. Rest in peace. But DDP through DDP Yoga has done just tremendous things for a lot of people. And so I see him as a villain in this movie. I'm like, this does not compute. Like he was a heel in wrestling and he did okay. But I just feel like he's just naturally just like connected with the people. I don't know. It might just be me.
No, he definitely was a face. He was a face a lot. I mean, his success obviously was the face era of DDP. He was heel. I know he was a bad guy. Like to me, it's like then Goldberg's stretch there. Goldberg was always usually a face. They should have had like you could have had where Sting had that moment in time where he was NWO Sting and like Sting kind of teetered between being a heel and a face.
Yeah.
But DDP as the villain is kind of off-putting. I really think that they could have went a different route. I don't know where you go because at that time, like you really can't like. I think of heels during WCW. Like I'm thinking like Ric Flair was heel a lot during the WCW run, but obviously older. Macho Man heel. Like you had so many different like shots that you could have done. I was kind of really surprised with the DDP route.
I mean, it almost aged worse over time because we know him as a saint now. Back then, we just knew him as really popular wrestler DDP.
Yeah.
That being said, he does a good job because he's just playing himself in a more cocky manner. But you mentioned, when we're going through the cameos, it hit a light bulb for me. Like Sid Vicious is right there. Just make him the villain.
Yeah.
And DDP
100%.
can be his friend. And that, looking back, it probably works a little better. But
100%.
As confusing as it is that he's the bad guy, he does a decent job with it, I feel.
And it leads to one of my favorite lines in the movie where Scott Conn like locks him in like the cage and he's like, Diamond Upside Down is a pussy. Like that's an amazing 10 out of 10 line of dialogue. No notes.
But it's funny though because WWF Psycho Sid Vicious was a heel. I mean, he fought Hogan in a WrestleMania. You know what I mean? So like to me, I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, and he was a heel like damn near all the time that I watched him wrestle. Yeah. Like and Sid Vicious was never babyface, was never a face. So to me, it was like, that's an easy call to make Sid Vicious your villain.
He looked the part. Like basically, like you see Sid Vicious walk into a room, you're like, it's like you head for the exit. Like he just had that 100%. Like he had that aura of like he's a bad man.
I think if you ask someone who doesn't watch wrestling to describe what a bad guy wrestler looks like, they're largely gonna describe someone like Sid Vicious.
Yes,
100% with the cut off vest, that leather vest, dude. He was a beast back in the day, man. I remember that mid 90s or no, it was like early 90s run with Sid Vicious, man. He was tough. He was really good too. And that's when WWF was, peak old school, like with, Macho Man, Ultimate Warrior, all those guys. But this was more kind of the downswing. I wish this movie would have came out like 98. Like at the Attitude, like you have DX and WWF, you have the Attitude's just getting started with Stone Cold and The Rock and all those guys, and then you have DX, and then you have WCW, you have NWO going. Like, God, it would have just been perfect, I think, to make this movie right around that time. You know what I mean?
It could have been great in '98. It would have changed. Like if you're doing that, there's a Hogan dynamic. There's probably an NWO dynamic. 100%. Does that change the entire movie? Probably, but maybe for the better. The star power would be there a little bit more because this is me and Jake were talking about it, beforehand. This movie basically comes out a calendar year to the day that the company shuts down. So they were really on borrowed time. Yeah,
it was like watered down. It was like a generic. It was like a Temu. Yeah. Temu version of what WCW was a year prior. You know what I mean? Like, you got to think WCW owned WWF for the longest time. It just took the Attitude Era to really push WWF over because they could not. I mean, and I was, I was lucky to be, alive and watching wrestling at the time. You had, WCW Nitro was bonkers, man. Like you had the streak, you had Goldberg's streak, which was, I think, awesome. I know he gets a lot of hate, but the guy you tuned in every Monday night for Nitro because it was awesome. And then the Attitude Era, you had that kicking off with them putting Stone Cold as the face of, the Attitude Era. You have DX as like the anti-authority, like what would later, be your NWO. Like it was great. But like you said, this is a year, but this movie comes out a year calendar, away from WCW kind of just fizzling out. It's a shame because, like I said, when they were good, man, they were hit for sure.
I mean, there is a stretch of time where WCW is number one, and they are beating WWF and stuff for an undisclosed amount of weeks. I forget how many it is, but it's kind of on the tail end of that. And if you try to do it in the peak of that, it's a completely different movie. Like DDP wouldn't even be at a main event level. Goldberg would still be like U.S. title, not heavyweight title. So it would end up being like Jimmy King versus the NWO is what that movie would end up being.
So for statistic purposes, WCW's Nitro defeated Raw 84 consecutive weeks. Okay, so you're looking at about a year and a half.
Right.
That's pretty fantastic. And at this time, WCW dominated the ratings between June of '96 and March of '98. So, I mean, those were, and again, that's where you start to see that swing. I was in attendance June of '98 for King of the Ring in Pittsburgh to see Mankind and Undertaker, part of the greatest match ever. Then it was like, they never looked back after that. But
Jake, you can cut this part out if you need to, but after you go to a live show like that, do you just say, well, I'm never going again because nothing's ever going to beat that?
You know what? Honestly, and then I've been at events after, but like the lackluster of that, though, man. Like, I mean, it's just it's etched in history as one of the best, obviously one of the greatest steel cage matches or Hell in a Cell matches.
Yeah.
But
when you see Mick Foley flying off of a man-made structure like that, it's all downhill from there.
Oh,
quite
dude.
literally.
We were in awe. I was absolutely in awe. I remember that place was crazy. I remember Stone Cold losing the belt to Kane. It was first blood match. And then he wins it back the next night. And Monday Night Raw was in Cleveland. It was at the Gund Arena at the time. He wins it back. And I remember just being like, so elated because I was so mad that he had first blood. I think that's what also Kane said he was going to set himself on fire if he lost.
If you lost, yeah.
So I do think so. So that kind of makes sense that Dr. Isaac Yankem, did that. But I don't know. Like you said, though, like this movie definitely is like almost like a Temu version of what could have been. They had so many other wrestlers back. I mean, so many, like a star-studded cast in the WCW franchise.
It still has a lot of charm, though.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
In my mess of a bookshelf back there, I have a book called Nitro, where it's about Monday Nitro. It's got tons of interviews. Like it's a bit of a pricey book, but I can't recommend it enough. It's phenomenal. Point is, if you read that, you'll just see like how WCW was treated by, I'll just say Warner Brothers, because that's like what the modern equivalent of is nowadays.
Yeah, Turner, Warner Brothers.
That's what it was. Yeah, Turner. Yeah.
As the redheaded stepchild, basically, is like, oh yeah, that's also here. It was apathy at best and hatred at worst. So I'd love to see Ready to Rumble in like a world where Warner Brothers actually like gave a crap to like give it a little bit more juice.
Wanted it to be successful.
Sadly, we'll never know because I believe, and around this time in the world history of the time, there was the AOL Time Warner merger, which that was a whole mess, and we don't have time for that. But basically, it was a whole big mess of a thing, and unfortunately, we'll just never know because WCW is sadly no longer with us. But like, I guess the theme of this review is what could have been, and like what we got was fun in a dumb way, and we all like consider it a guilty pleasure. But like, it's not going to be something like Warrior or something like The Wrestler, but like, make it fun. Make it like an adventure. I guess, for lack of a better word. Like,
it's really
the only right amount of push behind it.
Yeah,
I think it could have been better.
It's really the only movie of its kind because it's a wrestling comedy. Like on my channel, me and Jake have reviewed Iron Claw. We would do The Wrestler. I haven't seen yet, but Queen of the Ring I know is a drama.
That's a
None of
good
these.
one.
Yeah, that's one I've been meaning to get to. But like, this is the only crack at a wrestling comedy that I can think of. So like, it's kind of uncharted waters. It hasn't been done before or since, in my opinion.
Yeah,
It goes without saying. It goes without saying, but Iron Claw is the complete opposite of a comedy.
Correct. Yes.
This is a movie that you play at a party when you're drinking with the boys, just to kind of like, laugh and just reminisce and be like, hey, there's so-and-so, And I mean, Sting being in it obviously adds a little clout to the film because Sting was always huge in WCW. He was the face of WCW for the longest time.
Yeah.
And then, you see like Perry Saturn, which is such a random, so random, especially now. Like if you see his like now pictures, he looks awful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
sad
yeah,
stuff.
and then Billy Kidman. I think Billy Kidman does work behind the scenes at WWE too.
He
now,
does.
I
He's
think.
a producer
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Which is crazy. Yeah. So it kind of sucks because I do miss that whole WCW versus WWF. I miss that, and I think what monopolies do, they buy up so there's no competition now. And I feel like AEW gets obviously I think what AEW is WWE's competition.
It's the close. Yeah, it's the closest thing to it.
But it's not even anywhere near it. Though,
it's adjacent. The people that love it, like myself, like really love it, but you don't even put it in the same stratosphere.
No, because it wasn't like WCW versus WWF. It was completely different. I feel like AEW is like minor leagues, and then they bring those wrestlers up, or TNT or whatever, or TNA or whatever. They bring those wrestlers up because it wasn't Charlotte and all those like the women wrestlers in that circuit for a while, or not AEW, but
They were.
That's
they were
NXT.
in
That is their minor
NXT.
league.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. NXT.
That is their minor league. Yep.
Yeah. So that's kind of where they almost like they harvest the up and coming talent, and then WWE like goes,
It takes them. Yeah.
Yeah. So
one thing for a comedy, especially from this generation, you can judge if it's like enjoyable or not by the amount of like quotable lines that a movie would have. This has it in spades. I mean, this movie has taught you life lessons such as don't relieve pressure until their bones are snapping or they're crapping their pants.
Martin Landau,
Don't stand next to the ring when there's a ladder match going on. There's things you need to succeed in life.
Yeah, and then there's the funny scene with David Arquette sticking a finger in his ass. The slushy there.
Slurpee, yeah.
Oh, it was absolutely hilarious. It is funny though. I mean, and I'll go to bat for it. It's fun, and kind of what you said. It is one of those films that they really never charted. Like wrestling was always serious movies for the most part. You have Queen of the Ring, you have The Wrestler, you have Warrior. I mean, it's wrestling-esque. MMA wrestling-esque because then you have Kurt Angle in there too. So let's throw throw wrestling parallels in there too. But yeah, I feel like basketball, they did Celtic Pride. And then I feel like every other one's like Space Jam's like comedic basketball kid. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like those movies are all that way. Basketball films for the most part.
There's also this movie called Rebound with Martin Lawrence.
I did
where
see
he
that.
has to, basically it's like the Mighty Ducks, but with basketball.
Yeah. That one wasn't bad.
There's also
I liked it, but
I think
it's eerily similar to Mighty Ducks. That's my point.
It's called Champion with I think it's Woody Harrelson, and it's a basketball, but it's like Special Olympics.
I saw that one too.
That was very good, but it's same vein.
Yeah, for sure. But it's one of those that it pulls on the heartstrings on some of those films too, though.
Definitely.
But Champion I remember I didn't see that in the theater. I saw it I think on demand. Because that came out, wasn't that around COVID-esque?
I think it was a straight to prime type thing. Because
that's why
watching it, yeah.
And that's why I didn't see it in the theater. So that makes sense then. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we definitely need another wrestling comedy. They would never go that route, and then if they did, they would put it on WWE Network or Peacock for now until ESPN merger obviously goes through, and you have to pay like $60 a month or some weird crazy thing.
Saying 30 for right now, but we'll see.
That's craziness, man. I'm bummed because, I obviously got Peacock. It wasn't for that, but it was. I mean, there's a lot of I like watching the old catalog, man. I'm like watching the old Survivor Series, the old, WrestleManias and stuff like that. WrestleMania 6, Warrior and Hogan, fantastic one. But yeah, I hope that they lower that price or something and it's manageable, because 30 is like a lot for just having that, you know.
Yeah. So rewatching this for like modern eyes, like I've seen it a million times, but I rewatched it this week. One thing I've noticed, this movie can't decide if wrestling's fake or not.
Yeah.
Because they tell you, they're like, oh yeah, this is the finish and da-da-da.
Yeah.
But then they're like blood feuding in the ring.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that was probably by design. They weren't trying to blow the lid off of the whole thing, but like it goes back and forth a lot of times. That's one criticism I'll give it. I think you got to lean all the way in or lean all the way out, but they kind of ride the fence in a way that doesn't work.
They tiptoe the line a lot. You know what I mean? Obviously, you know, is the you know, the storyline's kind of predetermined. Yeah. Like remember learning about that and being devastated, but still appreciating it in its own right. It's still entertainment. Hence the, you know, WWE, like it's entertainment. But you still, there's a level of real to it, obviously, i.e. like I said, the King of the Ring match, any of those matches you see welts on the back of people's backs with, you know, with chairs or anything like that, thumbtacks sticking out of them. You know what I mean? There's a level of real to that, obviously. Terry Funk and Mankind and ECW, you know what I mean? Like there's a level of real to that for sure. But like what you said, it's one of those things where it's like, it kind of like, I don't know if it was worried about the audience being too young, like watching it and being like, yeah, I don't think we can like really make a decision because we don't want to ruin anything. You know what I mean? Right. And they kind of just skated it back, maybe. I don't know.
Like by the end of the movie, it's a 100% real fight. But in the beginning, you know, they're going over a finish in the back room. So it's like it starts there and goes all the way the other direction. Yeah. By the end of it. So
I think, though, at the end of the day, I'm going to give this a good rating, but a high good rating. It's not it's not like the quality is not like great per se, but I do get a kick out of this movie. I always have. Yeah. And this is just like I said, it's like I said, we've been talking about. It's a very weird little time capsule of like where the company was and where like wrestling was at that time. Another thing I wanted to bring up before I forget. The closest thing we got to a WWF movie at the time was Beyond the Mat. And even then, it was like just
it was more of
a
documentary.
And then we had Terry Funk's retirement show,
the first one.
Yeah, and a couple of other things. So there was like one WWF segment, and it was a documentary. There was no narrative movies coming out.
It is funny that WWF, even back then, never had a crack at anything like this because
you think they'd be all over it.
All Vince ever wanted to do was make movies anyway, and he actually says that in Beyond the Mat.
Yeah.
So to think that it could have been an Undertaker movie, it could have been Stone Cold, like the World of Stone. It could have been a million things, but yeah, the fact that they never did, they made movies later, and I guess the closest thing is like See No Evil because Kane is still like a villain in that, but even that's not a wrestling movie. Yeah, Marine.
The Marine, obviously, but that wasn't a wrestling. I mean, you know what I mean? They even had Stone Cold. You had The Condemned. I mean, they definitely took a stab at it, but it was one of those things where
they didn't do wrestling.
But it wasn't specific to what you know the characters from or the actors from. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? Beyond the Mat, the whole reason why I wanted to go see it obviously was WWF all over it, you know? And I think at the time, the only wrestling movie I remember seeing was No Holds Barred. I remember seeing that in the theaters because I loved Hulk Hogan. So, like, I remember that. And then I remember Zeus. Like, I remember them trying to put him into, like, wrestling, which was crazy. Now looking at it. But, I mean, he definitely had the physique that, you know, he was huge. You know what I mean? But, yeah, it's really surprising that Vince McMahon didn't try to tackle that because you know him. Like he was so cutthroat back in, you know, the 80s and the 90s. You figured he would have just tried to have a stranglehold on that to try to like promote the wrestling brand even more, you know?
Definitely.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy, but it is what it is.
Yeah. But I pass it off to all of you. What did you think of Ready to Rumble? Let us know in the comments. We would love to read what you have to say. And Russell, it's a privilege to do this with you every Friday. And Phil, it's great to bring you back on. And like I said, I have you earmarked to do Pokemon 2 when we eventually get there in the 2000 project. Your channel will be linked below. Do you have anything coming up?
I got a few things just dropped my UCF season preview as college football is about to kick off. I do actually want to leave for the diehard wrestling fans a little piece of nugget in this movie that I just recently learned and it's about the stunt doubles in this movie. So David Arquette, obviously loving wrestling, wanted to do basically all of his bits in the ring. They let him do some of it, but the stuff that wasn't him was actually a guy by the name of Sugar Shane Helms. Later on became the Hurricane, which that blew my mind.
Stand back.
Yes, stand back. There's a hurricane coming through. And then what'll blow my mind even more is obviously, this might shock everyone, Oliver Platt wasn't rolling around in the ring for this. So they actually got, who better, Chris Kanyon was his stunt double. So that blew my mind. I learned that, wanted to share that. But other than that,
makes sense.
Yeah, other than that, thanks for having me, guys. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, rest in peace, Chris Kanyon. You were dearly missed. Russell, where can the people find you?
Yeah, Notorious by Chance is the podcast Chance Ellison and I do. We just did Honora for the Best Picture winners. We have Napoleon Dynamite coming up next, Hidden Gems that came out. We will be shooting that tomorrow, so that should be out within the week, so keep an eye out for that. You guys can find us Notorious by Chance on YouTube. They've done some stuff on there with football season coming upon us, so check that out. I think, like I said, we did the Mount Rushmore of NFL franchises, which I thought was a lot of fun. And then they did something with the last week. I think they did something with what is the one thing that every franchise wished that they could like take back or something like, or that could have propelled them into a franchise, something like that. You have to watch it. Like I said, I wasn't on it, so I don't know, but I watched a little bit of it. But yeah, so you guys can find us there as well.
Yep, all the links will be down below. Go give them a subscribe over there. As far as this channel goes, next Friday, Russell and I will return to the horror movie Iceberg and conclude our coverage of the Wreck series by taking a look at Wreck 4 Apocalypse. And then after that, we'll dive into Quarantine 1 and 2. But the Wreck stuff is almost over, so stay tuned for that. But for Russell, for Phil, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you all in the next one. Y'all take care.